Hey everyone, I'm Saagar and I have my co-hosts here today, Logan and Greg. So I'll bring them up and then we'll kind of do a minute of intros each so you guys get to know us a little better. So again, I'm Saagar. I help run Platform, which is a curation of best of breed agencies and brokerages. So we really architect a retail strategy for amazing retail brands. And first and foremost, I want to see who here is in retail. And when I say retail, that means Amazon as well. Let's consider that retail. Okay. Who's done 9 figures in retail total? Okay, everyone's on the journey. Nice. All right, this should be relevant then. So I think it's definitely very possible. We've seen a ton of amazing brands do it. One's here today, so we have Bloom here. But we work with amazing brands like Mr. Beast, Vital Proteins, Ghost, Manscaped. Some brands that are on their way. Terry's here, and then Our Place and some other amazing brands. But a lot to talk about today, especially on what different strategies some companies have used to get there, what it means to, I think someone just asked, to really diversify the approach so you're not shooting yourself in the foot maybe after you've launched with a certain retailer and you're like, hey, I could have gotten the red carpet somewhere else. So there's a lot of nuances there, but the one thing I'd start by saying is that today's conversation will be very qualitative because when it comes to retail, it's not really about all data and insights and analytics. It's really about real partnership, authentic partnership, and connecting with the consumer wherever they are. And a lot of the times that's mistranslated when you don't have that relationship with your retail partner. So it's really important to have that authentic connectivity with your retail partner. So be it Target, Costco, Walmart, Sam's Club, what have you. So I think that's going to be a little bit of what we talk about today too, and how to identify what those opportunities could look like for your own brands. And I'll pass it off to Logan to introduce himself.
Cool, thank you, Saagar. Hey everyone, so my name's Logan Schwartz. I help lead the investment team at Ground Force Capital. We used to be known as Power Plant Ventures, Power Plant Partners. What we set out to do is empower purpose-led businesses to try to be the next generation of iconic consumer brands. So currently and I'm just gonna give you this context, I think it's relevant for our conversation. We're investing out of a $330 million fund. We are typically talking to businesses doing 20 million to 100 million of revenue. Some of those are in retail already, some of those are not and thinking about it. Some of the brands in our portfolio all had their own kind of separate journey from direct consumer to retail. Bobby, which is a leading infant formula brand, Only What You Need Owen is a leading plant-based RTD protein shake. Liquid Death, I'm sure everyone's familiar with that brand. Kinder Farms, which is a clean and effective medicine company. So I have the privilege of talking to 10, 20 entrepreneurs, founders, CEOs a week. It's amazing what everyone sets out to do, but retail is absolutely critical. And if you're not thinking about it today, you should have been thinking about it yesterday as you're looking to scale your business.
Hey guys, I'm Greg LaVecchia. I co-founded a fitness brand, which is now the Strength app on the App Store about 7 years ago with my wife, Mari Llewellyn. And we co-founded Bloom Nutrition in 2019, which is now predominantly a greens and superfoods powder, which is activated in Target, Walmart, Amazon, and D2C. And really excited to be here.
Awesome. Yeah, so I think maybe where we start is what Logan alluded to, which is starting to think about retail. And I know a lot of brands here, whether you're in retail or just Amazon or maybe your first leg into retail, which I always love when brands start testing early, because a lot of D2C founders, you can actually make plenty of mistakes early in your retail journey and not, like I said earlier, shoot yourself in the foot later when you're at Walmart or a Target. And that's specialty retail, right? And so you think about your Vitamin Shops, GNCs, Sephora's, Ulta's, some of the smaller players. And I think the journey there and prepping a D2C brand to start thinking about that first step into retail, would love your opinion on what brands should be thinking about, whether they're just securing their first round of funding or maybe doing 10, 20, 30 million in D2C revenue.
Yeah, well, shout out to FounderMade. I know this is a direct consumer conference, but we're talking about retail, and I think it's really timely because I think it'd be bad if we ignored how the market has shifted over the last 5 years and what's gone on. I think we saw 2017, 18, 19 leading up to the iOS 14 update. It really rattled a lot of businesses that maybe weren't prepared for that. So I think right now more than ever, retail is very, very important. And I think if I was starting my own business today, and this is what I talk to a lot of founders about, you don't want to wait to start thinking about retail until you have to go into retail, and I'll talk about a few reasons why. So One is when you set out to start your direct-to-consumer business, if that's the channel you're going to first, your P&L, a direct-to-consumer P&L income statement, looks very different than a retail income statement. Your gross margins are much lower in retail. If you're a product like Bloom, you're selling for $29.99 online, $29.99 in Target and Walmart. He's taking a lot less margin on the product that's sold in Target and Walmart than is what's sold in line. You're also paying 15 to 20% trade spend. So you really want to make sure from the start you're thinking about your price point. Is that a price point that I can actually sustainably grow in retail? Because you can't have a product and mark it up 50% once you're in retail. Also from a team aspect, the team to scale a direct consumer business is very different than a team that's going to scale retail. You need head of retail, you need folks that know the industry. It's completely different business models. So as you're scaling your business from the start, you really want to be thinking about that from the start in terms of how you're building your organization. And really, and again, my context is a lot of these brands that we're working with, our goal is to invest in them to sell to a strategic. Those are the targeted outcomes we're looking for. And you have to be in retail, you have to be in omni-channel, and it's really hard to do that because it takes time, which I know we'll talk about, sometimes a year, sometimes 2 years, sometimes 3 years to get into retail. So you really don't want it to delay it, and once you're in it, you want to make sure you can scale it efficiently with the team in place and the margin structure in place to scale efficiently.
Awesome, yeah, and then I think with that, Greg, maybe if you want to sort of interject here and provide some context on maybe your first foray into retail and why you went there and challenges.
I mean, first of all, I would say we're all D2C spoiled brats, so we can make a decision in 1 day, 1 week, within the hour. And even just personally, I'm coming from the perspective of CEO, CMO of Bloom. Retailers that I would like to launch in the next 12 months, I need to have that conversation now. So if you feel like you might be ready in 2 years, you should try your best to start the relationship with whether it's a brokerage-like platform or whether that's actually directly with the retailers. You should be having that conversation now, even if you don't feel like you're ready yet. So additionally, what's unique with retail is my section at least, they're resetting once a year now in Target, right? So any ideas I even want to bring to them, I have to get to them this January for October of 2024. So I think just understanding the cadence of communication and the cadence of like ideation and bringing new concepts to them, you need to get used to that timeline. And I would also say that we're all of us addressing the D2C digital consumer, they all have that omni-channel shopping behavior. So if you're marketing to them a shampoo to your D2C channel and they're already going to Target or Walmart every Sunday, and you have that potential of losing that space. So as your brand scales, it's ideal to have those touch points in retail to complement and lower your CAC of what's happening already digitally, right? Because we don't do any in real life marketing. It's all digital marketing. It all complements D2C very much, and it's all very top of funnel. But because it's top of funnel, you're communicating to that customer and saying, go buy this really anywhere that you would like and anywhere you're already making your conversions. So I think retail is a necessary channel, or IRL retail is a necessary channel for any digital brand that's exceeding 25 million a year.
Yeah, and that's a great point. And I think it's not just a number that you reach when you start thinking about retail. I mean, the question I get all the time is, when do we start thinking about retail, right? Is it 2 million? Is it 5 million? Is it 50? Is it 100? And believe it or not, we have brands that have done every single one of those numbers, right? Some have gone to retail at 2 million, some have gone to retail at 100 million in D2C revenue. But I think the beauty is when you start having conversations early, to Greg's point and to Logan's point, Logan was at a breakfast with me this morning with Sam's Club. And so we had the ability to learn that Sam's Club is looking for X, Y, and Z, within their portfolio of brands that solves a need for their member. Right, and not only did we learn that, but we learned more about the demographic, where they're going, what type of customers coming into that store, club channel strategy, et cetera. But those types of conversations, and we always, promote to brands, like Greg said, go talk to the retailers, whether it's through us or through your personal connections, whatever it is. Not waiting for a buyer to reach out or trying to transact with the buyer is I think that actually is a way later stage strategy. I think you want to dangle the carrot of your vision and what you're building pretty early so you can start hearing really authentic sound bites from the retailers, such as, we had a big water bottle company that you may know that's in Walmart, and they went straight to Walmart. But that was because they talked to Walmart early. Some brands are like, hey, Walmart's where brands go to die, right? Let's not talk to them. But this was a really great D2C brand. They had chatted with Walmart early, and lo and behold, they understood really quickly that Walmart was willing to give them a real partnership and strategy and the ability to handhold them to success, because it's a daunting thing to like talk to a massive corporation like that, like as a small company. But if you get into the right conversations and your brand fits a white space or a need for their consumer, you're going to get what's maybe even more important than waiting till you're a $50, $60 million brand, which is time, energy, and investment from that retailer. And it's a people business, so once you start getting time, energy, and investment, things start changing, right? You're not just on the bottom of a shelf, like kind of, compared to the older legacy CPG brands. You're started to be think of as a different type of brand, not just a vendor or a supplier, but a true brand that's on their shelf. So I think that's maybe tangential to the point of don't necessarily wait for a number or like some deck that says, okay, year 3 we're Target. Let's so 6 months before, let's reverse engineer the conversation. I don't think that works.
Yeah, and I would just say with that, I think, again, going back to this whole conversation that when you're starting your business or you're mapping out your business, maybe your year 3, year 4, your 10 to 15 million of direct consumer revenue, your product, you have to think about how and why it's going to sit on a shelf. So just because you get a meeting with Walmart, unless you're working with Saagar and the platform team, you're not guaranteed to get on the shelf. And if you're not even if you are, it takes some time. And I say that we invested in a company kind of in the height of the direct consumer boom that really doesn't have a place on shelf. And so it's made it really difficult because it truly is, based off the mechanics, a direct-to-consumer business. I think there's some industries that still works. I'm coming from food, beverage, beauty, personal care, health and wellness, VMS. To me, those businesses, to get acquired for a large sum of money one day to a strategic, they have to be in retail. And if they're in retail, you have to have kind of your own why. How are you differentiated from what's on the shelf? There's 2 different ways to get shelf space, right? One is you're in a growing category, and so that category is taking shelf within, I'll say, a Target, or it's a stagnant category and you're just taking shelf from a competitor. Either way, you have to prove why you're differentiated, and I really think that starts from the onset of how you're thinking about your business and your go-to-market strategy.
And I would say it's very underspoken how much validity is brought to your brand when one of these retailers, no matter who it is, partners with you, which is what it is. And consumers recognize that as a partnership. And at the end of the day, content, media, social media, it's royalty, it's king and queen. So if you can do something new for your brand, which is exciting, whether that's a new product, whether that's a new partnership with an influencer, whether that's collaborating with Target and Walmart, that's a whole campaign in itself, that every time something new happens in that retailer, you can create so much excitement and content about, which your retailer is going to love because you're essentially doing free marketing for them while you're making more conversions in your store, and it's going to bring validity, which will bring a net gain to all of your channels.
Yeah, and I think Saagar referenced the breakfast we had this morning with Sam's Club. To me, the kind of North Star is community. So any direct consumer brand, you have to be building your own community. I think the most successful ones when they go into retail, now you're an omni-channel brand, are you're able to develop and capitalize on a flywheel. So your community online and some of the paid media you're doing online is funneling folks into retail. They're buying the products, and perhaps next time they're going back to Amazon, which we see as a high repeat channel business or retention channel business. But if you're able to capitalize on a flywheel, okay, you are now omni-channel, right? Talking about Bloom, for an example, I mean, they built a fabulous community behind yourself and Mari. You are able to drive folks into Walmart when you want them to go into Walmart. Bobby, if folks are familiar with that business, they're able to drive folks into Target when they want to based off their community and their social media strategy. So I think it's really unique to be able to build that flywheel, and those are the most profitable, most successful businesses that are omni-channel.
Yeah, and I think that's a great sort of next step, or chronologically in sort of our panel today, is the first piece is put together a strategy, start thinking about retail, dangle the carrot, so to say, and start having those conversations. And then the next major step is you have a partnership. You execute on that partnership, again, through folks like us or directly, whatever the best way is for your brand. Once you have that initial partnership, and I think, Greg, you're starting to touch on it now, and I'm sure a lot of folks in here are in retail, but may not have, someone like your wife who's amazing and has done so much work and has literally embodied the brand as her own, right? And I think that obviously helps a ton. Very similar to Mr. Beast when we launched Feastables at Walmart, and now he's going into many other retailers. Similar strategy where that speaks for itself and can drive a lot of awareness and foot traffic. But for other brands who may not have those sorts of assets or be able to lean in on things like that, what are some of the things that you've seen work, whether it's through just dialogue with the retailer or through partnerships like ours, or more so on your own D2C, what can you do as a brand? And I think you touched on whether it's TikTok or campaigns that are driven to actually accelerate the velocity once you're at retail.
So we're a big top of funnel marketing brand. Most of our marketing is very top of funnel and brand awareness. So what kind of changed with that is, as I quickly realized, we do need to actually funnel some customers to these individual channels, especially to make sure customers are understanding that we're there. So for example, in September, we did a 1 week, I call it a hurricane, a surge of marketing around our presence in Target. It seems like just because you're at the discretion of the algorithm and understanding the short attention spans of social media users, a campaign lasting, ideally it's 3 days, but in this case it was 1 week for us. Just having every influencer that you could possibly, that you do have a relationship with, posting about, oh wow, Bloom is now in Target, or this new flavor is now in Target. And so in September, which we hit a huge record month in September, that was all digitally driven. At no point did we have any trade spend, which just means you're on sale, and it was completely fueled by influencer marketing, and it's all coming from. At our scale, it's 300, 400 influencers across TikTok and Instagram probably across that week, but it's very complimentary of that consumer going into the Target stores, making sure they realize you're in the store, and when they're shopping on their normal Saturday trip, they're like, oh, I keep seeing this on TikTok, I'm gonna give it a shot.
How important is, and maybe just a more random point, but I've seen this work really well with a lot of our clients, how important is it to develop content in the store?
I think it's huge, so much so that when I pitch Target and I'm asking them, which by the way, every point of communication with these retailers, you're suited and booted, you're ready for the best pitch of your life, you only have so many points of communication with them, especially in the beginning. You need to take it very seriously every time you get to speak to them, because they're going to lay out opportunities if you do a great job on that pitch. But what I'm always asking for is, I call them props, I call them studios. So I say, if you give me an end cap, that's a studio for our influencers. That's a content creating tool for our influencers. And if you keep us wanting to make these Target ads, which are really just Bloom ads saying that we're in Target, I need props for our actors, for our actresses. And in that case, that's an end cap, that's an off shelf, that's some sort of display within the store, and helping them understand how you're driving this digital traffic and telling them that you need these touch points within the store to create content with. They're huge fans of that. They love when you ask customers to go take pictures. I'm sure all of you guys have loyal followings with your brands on a digital community level. Having your customers go take pictures with those end caps, with those sidekicks, with those off shelves within the store, and then I send an email to Target showing them all these photos of customers, posting with those off shelves. That's very much a key point of making our presence in those stores sustainably, digitally entertaining.
So I think that's awesome, and I think the one thing, it's twofold. I think there's a two-way street with retailers. So I think one piece Greg mentioned is get your stuff straightened when you're in the pitch. Like, make sure you're on top of it. Make sure you're actually listening for the opportunities that they might be giving you, because they do speak a little bit of a different language, and a lot of times that's why we're in the room to sort of do the translating from D2C to retailers. But the other side of that coin is, you brands have a ton of data that retailers don't, right? And so we also, under platform, we own a pretty big Amazon agency called Vendo. And we've actually, a lot of our D2C brands, we'll consider Amazon a part of that for a second, have a ton of data around their customer base, what they can really bring to the retailer. And we actually partnered with a lot of our brands to take that D2C information, take the Amazon information. And one specific example that's coming to mind is a brand that we helped pitch to Costco, and we kind of put that together. And Costco was like, holy shit, like, we don't have this data truly. And they were like, you're bringing us a brand that is like a brand new idea for us, because Costco is interesting. I don't know how many people are in Costco, but it's 3,000 SKUs. It's one in, one out. They're very value driven. It's not so much about just a hot brand. They want real value. They want quality, and they want it to solve a need for their customers. So, and that's why they're sourcing like olive oil from Italy, and you'll never recognize the brand, right? But it's an amazing product. And so I think bringing that type of data and insights, and I said this is qualitative, but this is the part that is really analytical and data driven, is if you can gather those and properly present them, to Greg's point, you're going to win. And there's a lot of people looking for that one slot that they're giving up next year, whether it's in hydration or beauty or skincare, personal wellness, whatever it is. That's how you win. And those are the out-of-box ideas that the buyers, who some of them have been there for 2 months, some of them have been there for 25 years, right? It really depends on who you're talking to, but that's the type of stuff where they appreciate that a ton, and they're willing to lean in because they're like, all right, this is going to be a partner for us as well, right? We're going to learn new things and be able to do better to our member, to our guest, to our customer.
Yeah, and I think I heard this kind of from both of what you just said is relationships. So I know it's very obvious to all of us how important relationships are, but I mean, in retail, a lot of these folks, they've been there for 2 years, but maybe they've been at Target for 10 years and they've moved around as a buyer. Like you need a buyer to be a champion for your product and your business. And so that starts coming to every meeting prepared, obviously, and whatnot, but don't underscore the value of relationships. And what I mean, I think the best way to start with that is if you are thinking about going into retail, obviously align yourself with a great partner like Saagar, but also a head of retail, someone that's executed on this playbook before. There's nothing really revolutionary about selling a product in Target or Walmart or Costco. I mean, it's been done now for, I don't know, however long here in the States. So there's a playbook, and there's a playbook that works. You make certain tweaks to it, like Greg has done a great job with studios and getting end caps. That's great. Not every brand's going to have that luxury. So you want to go back to the blocking and tackling, and it starts with relationships and starts with folks that have done this to some extent that can really help guide you if you're the CEO of your business, if you don't have retail experience.
Yeah, and the most valuable thing that you can, or even more valuable than selling, let's say my $29.99 product in Target, is telling them that this is a customer who is not already coming to your store, because that person's going to now buy other things. So if you can show them, all right, Bloom, it's 50% a Gen Z female who would never walk down your, let's say predominantly male pre-workout aisle. I'm bringing now somebody to them who maybe they were going to Target, but they definitely weren't going down this aisle previously. And that's of huge value to them.
Yeah, it's incrementality. And if we all have bottom lines to our own respect, right? Like Target, the buyer at Target has a bottom line. If they're taking a bet on you, it's gonna hurt them if that product doesn't move. They're incentivized to grow that category, and the best way they can do that, to Greg's point, and I think that's why Bloom's been so successful, is incrementality.
Yeah. And I know I'm looking at the clock here, and I feel like this conversation there's so much to retail, right? We're touching on random retailers here. Amazon's a big piece, but maybe to make it more relevant before lunch, if you guys want to ask any questions now, we can get a little bit more pointed, or if you want to hear more of Bloom's story, whatever, feel free to, yeah, go ahead.
Hi, I have a question. My name's Maria. I'm the founder of Eat Cleaner. We make the world's only lab-proven and patented produce wash. Our category is very small, and people that have been in the category before us have not done a great job. Thank you. And so my first question is, how do you break through the preconceived notion of a product? Maybe the category is small and underdeveloped. How do you stand out? And do you recommend a direct selling sales force or going through a broker network? Because that's also been something that's been challenging for us to kind of just, determine how best to grow and scale based on those really important retail relationships that we're trying to secure.
Yeah, I can take that briefly. You said you have a wash. What was it?
It's a produce wash.
Produce wash.
We make a wash. We make wipes.
Oh, awesome.
The only food grade wipes out there. We also make anti-browning and antioxidant products for cut produce.
Awesome. So that's actually a really interesting category, and I know we touched on really broad categories like hydration and greens and supplements and VMS and beauty. Typically, if you're creating a product such as Bloom that's opening up such a wide net, it might be easier, to have these direct retail conversations through broker networks and kind of leverage your D2C growth to capture the retail audience. I think for a product like yours, and this is just riffing here, I started earlier by saying that honestly, there is no templatized path, right? Our tagline is there's many paths in one platform, right? And so we've always believed that it has to be very authentic to the brand. There's a couple brands that we're working with that don't have really large categories, don't have large search volume, whether you're talking about Amazon or Google, and they're trying to create a cleaner or better solution to something that people maybe use, often, semi-often, whatever that is. For those, we've always seen it being really, I think that the most success we've seen in those types of categories are when they start owning and winning somewhere, right? So like I'm thinking of a supplement brand in my hand that doesn't have a wide net, very niche, but they started winning at like Earth Bar here in LA, and then they started winning at early stage natural, and then they went to grocery, and then they went to Vitamin Shop and GNC, and then they kind of leveraged each step of the way to prove that they were better than the competition or they were a better solution. And that story is actually just as strong as Bloom's story, right? Because that you're proving it along the way instead of waiting for this larger tipping point or inflection point to say, give us what we want because we're amazing, which Bloom is. And I think, if your product can prove that instead of waiting for that tipping point, but slow and steady, kind of owning these markets, owning the bodegas, wherever, you're best sold. I know I think it's a sun care brand that's doing this right now and kind of owning all the beach cities in a way that they're kind of building the awareness and then leveraging the awareness for the next retail conversation. So I think that's my, intuition, I guess, on that. I don't know if you guys have any.
Yeah, I think what you just described is deep and narrow. And so the metric that we'll look at if we're looking at contemplating investment, the first metric we'll look at is velocity. So how many times is your product turning on the shelf? And we're going to compare that to the competitor. I think the best way to build velocity is to go deep and narrow if you are in a relatively new category, like it sounds like you're looking to set out on.
Yeah, it's funny because we launched 5 Hour Energy, my partner, about 15, 20 years ago, and it was very much they went deep and narrow. They just got product in hand, just showed the consumer it was better, and they went bodegas, 7-Elevens, right? So they started small and then kind of went the slow and steady wins the race over time because their product was better and offered a better value to the customer. So I guess, deep and narrow is my opinion then on that. Any other questions for any of us?
Don't be shy.
Hey, I have a question. So you talk about the importance of D2C brands going into retail. I've actually had a lot of conversations lately with founders or even large-scale companies, no longer founder-led, who are in retail, and they realize, just like all the streamers or the cable networks, like, oh, I don't have any relationship with my customer, and now they're trying to go to D2C. Do you feel the same way about the transition going the other way? You sort of said if you're a D2C brand and you're not thinking about retail, at least not today, you should have thought of it yesterday. Is it just we're living in a world where you need to be D2C and retail, or is it just D2C brands need to have retail?
You can go for it.
I think with these streamers, with these influencers, we're talking from a very top of funnel of the marketing funnel. So therefore, I think you need to be omni-channel and you need to be everywhere, or that's the most complementary to that style of marketing versus, whether it's the iOS update or whether it's just, you're having difficulty scaling on Meta, with a lookalike audience, very targeted audience. If you're going to be using these streamers, and you also have zero attribution anyway most of the time when you're working with these people, so you're best off making sure you're as available as many points of contact as you can be.
And I think so. Again, where we focus in the market, most of the businesses are emerging, so they're kind of 10, 20, 30, 40 million of revenue. Most of them have been founded in the last 5 to 10 years, so most of them are D2C first. And that's with the transition where we spend most of the time pushing them into retail. If a company's in retail today, and I think somewhat is dependent on category, so actually if you're a large electronic like a Peloton, right, that might be a different story versus a VMS brand. I think every single company in today's world needs to be omni-channel. Like, you need to have some online presence to tailor the narrative of your brand to that to that customer directly, which you don't often get in retail unless you have some studio or end cap. Is that?
Yeah, no, I would
Yeah.
agree with that. I mean, I'm just curious, like, if you think, is it just, oh, in order to survive as a D2C brand, you need to expand beyond D2C, or you think we're just living in an omni-channel world and you need both. You need direct access to your customer, and you need to, for distribution and scale, you need the footprint of third-party channel.
I think you need both. Honestly, I mean, it's so different based on the management teams. Are they trying to exit? Are they trying to expand? Do they want to go public? It's a lot different based on the nuance of the company. But we always called big CPG gangsters because they either sue you until they can buy you, basically, and so they'll try to just come at you that way. And when they do finally do that, I think it's funny because there's a large, we work with large strategics as well, and I think if I caught what you were asking was, there's also big brands that might want to go the other way, that might be older. Was that what you were saying?
Yeah, 100%. I think like if you look at the cable analogy, right, where like one day cable woke up, Netflix ate their lunch, and they were like, shit, we don't have any customer data.
Got it.
We
Yeah.
go direct to consumer because we have no billing relationships. Or in CPG, there's a lot of both small brands who started out, selling their products to retail, and that it can be exhausting
Yeah.
too. You can lose a retail partnership, and then you don't, there's no other way to get to your customer.
I think the last thing I'll say, because I know we're up on time, is I think it's really hard to manufacture authenticity. And you saw that with the rise of Amazon aggregators, really big brands that had no community, just widgets that were basically, buying and selling EBITDA. That's what they were doing. But there was no authenticity. A lot of them had so much trouble going to retail. A lot of them, I've talked to personally. And I think that's a good example of you can't manufacture authenticity. The stuff Bloom is doing, the stuff that's in Logan's portfolio, I'm sure a ton of people here. I'm excited to talk to you all later. I think whether you're big or small, it doesn't matter. I think if you don't have an authentic community or you're not trying to build one, it's just going to be difficult to survive in this environment. Yeah. But sorry, I know we're up for time, and you guys all have a lunch now. So thank you again for sticking around and listening to us. Really appreciate it.